June 1816, Vermont. A farmer steps outside at dawn to check his corn. The leaves are black, not wilted, black, frozen solid in the middle of summer. He walks to the well. Ice has formed across the surface overnight. He doesn't know it yet, but 1,000 miles south, the same thing is happening in Pennsylvania, in New York, in Quebec. Across the Atlantic, in Switzerland, the rivers are flooding with the bodies of dead horses. In Ireland, the rain has not stopped for 8 weeks. In a villa on Lake Geneva, a teenage girl is having a nightmare that will become the first horror novel in the English language. And in a province of British India called Bengal, a new disease is mutating in the warm marshes. A disease that, within 7 years, will kill tens of millions of people across the planet. None of these people know what is happening. None of them will ever fully find out. But 13 months earlier, on the other side of the world, a mountain exploded. Sumbawa Island, Indonesia. The volcano is called Tambora. Before this night, it stands roughly 14,000 feet high. By morning, it will be 9,000. The eruption is so loud it is heard 1,600 miles away. British soldiers in Java mistake it for cannon fire and prepare for invasion. Ash falls on Borneo. Pumice, rafts the size of villages, drift across the ocean for months. It is the largest volcanic eruption in recorded human history. On the Volcanic Explosivity Index, it is rated 7. The 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens, which terrified America, was a 5. Tambora released more than 100 times the energy. Around 10,000 people die instantly. Another 80,000 die in the months that follow, from starvation and disease across Indonesia. But the real death toll is just beginning. Because Tambora has thrown roughly 60 million tons of sulfur into the stratosphere. And there, at altitude, it begins to spread. The sulfur reacts with water vapor. It forms a veil of microscopic droplets, sulfate aerosols, that wrap around the planet. The veil reflects sunlight back into space. Slowly, invisibly, the world begins to cool. By the spring of 1816, the veil is everywhere. The sun has not gone out, but less of it is reaching the ground, and the harvest is about to fail. Switzerland records the coldest summer in 500 years. In Geneva, the average temperature in June drops by nearly 3 degrees Celsius. It rains for 130 of the 153 days between April and September. In the cantons, wheat rots in the fields before it can ripen. Hay never grows. Without hay, horses starve. Without horses, farmers cannot work the next year's land. The cycle eats itself. Bread riots break out in France, in Switzerland, in the German states. In Augsburg, a mob storms the bakeries. In Toggenburg, peasants strip bark from trees and grind it into flour. The Russian and Prussian governments seal their borders to stop refugees. Ireland gets it differently. 8 straight weeks of rain. Potatoes, the food of the poor, drown in the soil. Then, on top of the famine, comes typhus. 100,000 Irish die in 2 years. In Wales, in Hungary, in Italy, the same story. The pattern is so consistent that one historian, John Post, calls 1816 the last great subsistence crisis of the Western world. After this, Europe never starves on this scale again. But while peasants are eating bark, something else is happening in Switzerland. On the shore of Lake Geneva, in a rented villa called Diodati, a different kind of history is being written. Lord Byron is 28 years old. He has fled England under a cloud. Debts, scandals, and rumors of an affair with his half-sister. He arrives in Switzerland expecting an alpine summer of wine and women. Instead, he gets endless rain. Trapped indoors at Villa Diodati, Byron is joined by his physician, John Polidori, the poet Percy Shelley, Shelley's 18-year-old lover, Mary Godwin, and Mary's stepsister, Claire, who is, secretly, pregnant with Byron's child. Outside, the lake is the color of lead. Lightning storms blast the mountains for days. The group reads German ghost stories by candlelight, takes laudanum, and argues about whether dead bodies can be reanimated by electricity. One night, Byron proposes a contest. Each of them must write a horror story. Mary Godwin can't think of anything. For days, she stares at the rain. Then, on a sleepless night, she has a vision. She sees a pale student kneeling beside a thing he has assembled from corpses. She sees the thing open its eyes. That night, she begins writing. The book will be published 2 years later. She will sign it, Mary Shelley. The book is called Frankenstein. In the same room, Polidori is sketching the outline of The Vampire, the story that will, 80 years later, give Bram Stoker the template for Dracula. Two of the most enduring monsters in world literature were born in the same room during the same week because of a volcano on the other side of the planet. But Mary Shelley is not the only one watching the rain. A few hundred miles to the north, in the Grand Duchy of Baden, a forester is watching the dead horses pile up, and he is starting to think. His name is Karl Dreys. He is 31 years old, an aristocrat, and an oddball. He has already designed an early typewriter and a meat grinder, but by the summer of 1816, he is obsessed with a single problem. The horses are dying. Without oats, without hay, the working horses of Europe are starving by the thousands. In some German cities, families are eating them. The price of a single living horse triples. For Dreys, this is not just a tragedy, it is a question. If horses are gone, how does a person move? He builds the answer in his workshop. 2 wooden wheels in a line, a wooden frame, a handlebar to steer. No pedals. The rider pushes off the ground with his feet. He calls it the Lauf machine, the running machine. On June 12, 1817, exactly 1 year after the haunted summer at Villa Diodati, Dreys rides his machine from Mannheim to a coaching inn 7 kilometers away. The trip, which takes a horse-drawn carriage 4 hours, takes him under one. He has, without knowing it, invented the bicycle. The machine catches on across Europe under the name Draisine. It is mocked by the press, banned in some cities, but the idea cannot be killed. Within 50 years, pedals are added. Within 70, the chain drive. By 1900, the bicycle has rewritten the geography of every working-class life on the continent. Every bicycle on Earth, every BMX, every Tour de France, every child learning to balance, descends in a direct line from a man who is tired of watching horses die. But the volcano is not done. It still has India to deal with. The monsoon of 1816 arrives in India sick. The rains come late, then come too hard. Rivers flood. Stagnant water sits in the deltas of Bengal for months. In one of those deltas, in a population already weakened by disrupted weather, a microbe begins to change. The microbe is called Vibrio cholerae. It has lived quietly in the brackish water of the Ganges for centuries, causing localized outbreaks. But this strain is different, more aggressive, more transmissible, and it has now been seeded into a vast population of malnourished people who are about to start moving. In 1817, British soldiers in Bengal begin to die from a violent new disease. Within hours of the first symptoms, the body is a husk. Cholera dehydrates a healthy adult to death in a single day. The British Army carries it across India. Trade caravans carry it into Persia. By 1820, it has reached China and Indonesia. By 1823, it has crossed into Russia. It will return again and again and again in waves through the 19th century. 6 global pandemics, killing tens of millions. The cholera that terrorized Victorian London in 1854. The cholera that John Snow famously traced to a water pump on Broad Street. The cholera that gave us modern epidemiology. It started in Bengal, in a delta that flooded, in a year when the weather went wrong because a mountain had exploded. But the volcano had one more continent to break. Thomas Jefferson is 73 years old. He is retired at Monticello, his Virginia estate, watching his crops fail. In a letter to a friend that summer, he writes that the year's harvest has been the worst he has ever seen. He worries that Monticello may not survive. Across New England, the worry is louder. In Vermont, in New Hampshire, in upstate New York, frosts hit on June 6th. Snow falls in Albany on June 9th. By July, lakes are still freezing at night. The corn, the staple crop of the region, does not ripen. The hay does not grow. The sheep starve. For thousands of New England farming families, the math becomes simple. The land is broken. The soil is exhausted from generations of farming. They have heard rumors of black, fertile soil to the west, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, land that has never been plowed. The migration begins in 1816 and explodes in 1817. Historians estimate that hundreds of thousands of New Englanders abandoned their farms in the years following the cold summer. They walked west with everything they owned. They cleared the forests of the old Northwest. They founded the towns that would, within a generation, become the agricultural backbone of the United States. Among the families forced to move was a poor Kentucky farmer named Thomas Lincoln. His 7-year-old son had spent the cold summer at the family's Knob Creek farm, watching crops fail. 2 years later, the family would move to Indiana, partly because the land in Kentucky could no longer feed them. The boy's name was Abraham. The year without a summer did not invent westward expansion, but it accelerated it by a generation. It pushed the American frontier deeper, faster. It rerouted millions of lives, and it placed at least one of those lives, a tall, awkward boy from a broken farm, on a path that 45 years later would lead to a war over slavery and a country reborn. A volcano in Indonesia helped reshape the map of the United States. Here is the strange part. For more than a century, no one connected any of this. The villagers in Vermont who watched their corn freeze did not know about Tambora. The farmers in Switzerland eating tree bark did not know. Mary Shelley, writing about a man who tried to play God with the forces of nature, She did not know that the storm outside her window had been written by a volcano. She felt it. She put it on the page, but she could not name it. The link between Tambora and 1816 was not firmly established by science until the 1920s, more than a century after the eruption. The sulfate signal in the Greenland ice cores, the dust veil in the historical weather records. It took modern instruments to read what the world had already lived through, which raises an uncomfortable question. Tambora was not a freak event. There have been larger eruptions in human prehistory. Toba, 74,000 years ago, may have nearly extinguished the human species. The Long Valley caldera in California could erupt again. Yellowstone could erupt again. The math of geology says it is not a question of if, but when. The next time a Category 7 volcano detonates, our climate, our supply chains, our fragile global agriculture will absorb the blow. We will see crop failures across continents. We will see migration. We will see the cholera of our age, whatever it turns out to be. The 1816 generation lived through it without knowing why. We would, at least, know the cause. Whether that knowledge would help us, or whether it would only let us watch more clearly as the system failed, that is the question Mary Shelley was already asking in a candlelit room above a flooding lake 200 years ago. She didn't have an answer. We don't either.